up YouTube, my name is Hyper and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today's video is the first of a 4-part series on how to get better at Fortnite. Today's video we're going to be focusing on aiming and how to get better quickly and efficiently inside of Fortnite. All the tips in this video are things that the pros do but no one really talks about, and I've left some of the best tips for last, so make sure you watch all the way to the end so you don't miss any awesome steps. I guarantee this will help you improve your aim so that you can be dominating and winning more of your Fortnite matches and maybe even winning some money. If you do end up enjoying this video and it does help you, please go and leave a like and also consider subscribing as it's completely free and you can always change your mind later. Now with all that being said, let's get into this awesome how to aim guide. So the first tip I have for you guys is find the right sense for you. Now I know that sounds like a very generic tip, but finding the right sense for your playstyle is super important. There is no such thing as a perfect sensitivity. Everybody has a different sense, everybody needs different sensitivities depending on their playstyle and their personal preference. At the end of the day, it's all about just trying out different sensitivities until you find one that you're comfortable with, and then practice that sense to perfection. Okay, so I think we need to talk about firstly the two different types of aiming that there are. So we have tracking and we have flick shots. Now flick shots are where you flick your mouse and you 180 and flick the person behind you and hit them for a bunch of damage. And tracking is the ability to keep your crosshair pinned on the player as they move around. Now, too often I see people practicing their flicks and they ignore tracking. And I need to say right now, tracking is far more important than flick shots. When I was first starting out, I had the same thing. I was only focusing on flick shots. I didn't think tracking was a useful thing. I was like, I just want to practice my cool flick shots. But tracking is what lets you laser people out of the sky. It's what wins you those box fights. It's what wins you those spray fights. And unfortunately, that's just what the meta is right now. That's what the meta's been for a long time. So the flick shotting days are, it's not useless to be able to flick shot, but it's not meta right now. It's spray meta, which is unfortunate, but it means you need to get better at tracking, which will bring me nicely on to our next tip. So that brings me on to my second tip, which is practice with your sensitivity. Now this is key. You have to practice. You can't just give up just because it's hard. You have to keep pushing through, keep practicing. Some of the things I like to do is box fights or build fights is a good way to warm up your aim. You can do aim duels, aim Fortnite training maps, or download third-party apps such as Kovacs Aim Trainer and things like that outside of Fortnite that will help you improve your aim. Believe me when I tell you, practicing in something like Kovacs or even an aim training map can improve your aim so much, so quickly, and it's so important to becoming a better Fortnite player. I used to be terrible at aiming. I could build, I could edit, but I just couldn't hit my shots. And when I started practicing every day for it could be even 30 minutes, every day is enough to create a monster. You can become an absolute beast, but you just have to keep practicing and you need to not give up. Alright, so for my third tip, we're getting into the more technical tips now. And so for this third tip, I want to talk about crosshair placement. Now, crosshair placement is exactly how it sounds. It's the placement of your crosshair, or the place that you keep your crosshair when you're playing the game. So a lot of players, too many players, will just aim it wherever they feel like. They're running, they'll aim it like this. They're running inside of buildings, they just walk around like this. This is a no-no. You do not want to be doing this. The place where you want to have your crosshair, the optimal place for your crosshair to be, is at head height, which makes sense because you can hit more headshots if your crosshair is at head height. If I am peeking this corner and my crosshair's here and the player's there, I have to move my crosshair from here all the way up to here to hit a headshot. But if I've already got my crosshair generally at the head height area, then I can be running around, see the guy in here, and all I need to do is make a tiny little adjustment to hit the head. Same thing applies for shotguns and SMGs. So I don't have an SMG in my inventory right now, but I'll use a SCAR acting as an SMG spray weapon. If I come in here and I'm aiming at the floor, it takes a lot more shots than if I run in here aiming at the head and just hit all headshots. So you don't need to be a controller player to hit all headshots, you just need good crosshair placement. Same thing applies with the pump shotgun. If you're aiming in here, say you're running through a building, I see this so often, players running through buildings like this, aiming at the floor, they hit the guy for 10 damage in the toe, and they say, I hate this game, pumps don't do enough damage, epic, fix the pump. When in reality, it's actually their mistake. So what you want to be doing, and I'll just kill this guy so he's on full HP, what you want to be doing is aiming it at that head height, even when you're running through buildings. That way, if somebody jumps out, surprises you, you shoot the pump, and you hit the 200 pump before they even get a chance to react. So yeah, that's tip number 3. Wherever possible, keep your crosshair aimed at the head. Okay, so for this 4th tip, we're going to be talking about mouse grip, how you hold your mouse. So there are sort of 3 main ways players hold their mouse. So we have the flat palm, where everything is flat on the mouse. We have a little bit of claw, palmed claw, where the palm of your hand still stays on the mouse but your fingers are curved up in a claw shape. And then we have full claw, where your palm is off the mouse and you're just sort of moving it around with your fingers. Now, it's again all up to personal preference. I personally use palmed claw. The reason why I use this is because my fingers can just click faster when they're in this curled position. And also, you can make these little micro adjustments with your fingers. So I'll demonstrate right here. You can make these tiny little micro movements on top of your normal movement. So you can have these big wide range of movement, and then inside of this movement, so you do like your big flick, and then you can use your fingers for these little micro adjustments to hit those headshots. Okay, so for the 5th tip, I want to talk about recoil control and bloom patterns. So if you're not sure what recoil is, it's the kickback that your gun has from shooting. So if I aim my gun at the horizon, you'll see that my crosshair slowly moves up past the horizon, and same with the scar, you aim it at the horizon here, and the crosshair slowly moves up and up and up the more you shoot. Now this means that you will miss shots if you keep spraying, but luckily there is a way to control this recoil. And to do this, what you want to do is drag down on your mouse pad. You drag down at the same speed that the recoil is pushing up. So this might take a bit of practice, but if the recoil is going up this fast, then we should be able to drag our mouse down and keep the crosshair fairly in line with the horizon. See there? Not perfect, but pretty close. So we'll demonstrate here. First clip will be without any recoil control. So I'm just left clicking, here we go. And it's already off of him, right? This next one, I am going to do recoil control. Slowly dragging down my mouse, and as you can see, I hit tons and tons of headshots. This is the same with the scar from long distances. So if I come up here and I just start spraying at his head, I shoot 2 shots and now the crosshair is going up. But with a bit of recoil control, I can generally keep my crosshair on his head. Now of course bloom does come into play, and we will talk about that in a minute, but generally if you drag down at the same speed that your gun is kicking up, you will laser people. And a very useful tip is drag down really quick when using the AUG, also known as the burst assault rifle. So basically, the burst shoots 3 shots quickly and has a lot of kick. So if you quickly drag down when you have the burst, you'll hit all of your shots instead of just hitting one and then having the rest fly off to space or wherever the heck they go. So now talking about bloom patterns, unfortunately in Fortnite there are no such thing as bloom patterns. So in games like CSGO, there is memorizable bloom patterns. So the AK in CSGO goes up like this, across, it goes across again, and then back to the middle. So if you just do that whole thing in reverse, it would basically keep your crosshair in the same spot so that you can spray and hit all your shots. Unfortunately, there's no bloom patterns in Fortnite, but there are techniques that you can use to reduce your bloom, which I'll talk about in the next tip. But there are also things close range that you can do. So recoil control is one of the big things, And also something that I like to do when I'm in a really close quarters fight is I actually like to just wiggle my mouse. I'm not sure why this works, but for some reason whenever I'm in a box and I just jump on the player and I start wiggling my mouse like this, I just start hitting way more shots than if I wasn't jiggling my mouse. I'm not sure what it is, but it just consistently works for me in box fights to just wiggle my mouse a little bit, and it really helps control the bloom. Okay, so leading on from the 5th tip, we have our 6th and final tip of the video, and that is bloom reduction techniques. So I was talking about earlier how there are no such thing as bloom patterns in Fortnite, which is unfortunate, but you can use these techniques to reduce your bloom. Now, it's not going to get rid of them. It's not going to get rid of your bloom. Bloom will always be an annoying factor in this video game, but you can significantly reduce it. So the first technique I want to talk to you about is spam crouching. Now, someone who made this incredibly popular and is incredibly good at it is Benjyfishy. I'm sure you know who he is. He's an absolute god from the European servers. Absolute god. And he is very good at this bloom reduction technique. So basically what it is you just spam crouch. Now what he does is he crouches with his crouch button, and then instead of pressing his crouch button again to uncrouch, he actually uses his spacebar. So he goes spacebar crouch, like this really quick. And if you do it right, you will absolutely laser with almost no bloom, as you can see right there. All the bullets just go straight ahead, whereas if you're like this, you start getting crazy bloom already, and already my shots are missing, and yeah. So that's the first technique. The second technique I want to talk about, which isn't so much a technique as just a smart thing to do, is as much as you think it's a good idea to jump around in box fights, do not do it. Do not jump around in box fights. Stay crouched and just avoid jumping. Because you'll see here, when you jump, your bloom is so much worse. So if I'm jumping, it's harder to keep my crosshair on him, especially with a scar. It's harder to keep the crosshair. The bloom gets really bad, and it's just overall harder to hit him. But if you're crouching or just not jumping, you can be in the box fight. If they're jumping over you, you can be the one to be using this crouching technique, lasering them while they jump up in the air. They make the mistake of jumping, and you can just go laser them with the SMG, with your AR, even with your shotgun, and you can take them out while they're jumping up in the air doing all their crazy stuff. And the final bonus tip that I want to talk about, which I probably saw coming, but it's don't give up. You're not going to learn keyboard and mouse instantly. No one does. No one is amazing straight away. No one is as good as Benjyfishy, as Bugha, as those pros. Nobody is as good as them with 10 hours on the game, even, 200 hours on the game. These players play every day. They practice every day. If you practice as much as you can, maybe not every day. I understand that a lot of you have school and things like that and a life. So I understand that you can't practice all the time, but just don't give up. Don't go, I give up, I'm sticking with controller, although controller is a good option for aiming, don't get me wrong, but that's a topic for another time. Just don't give up, because you will get better. You will see your aim improve if you follow these tips, and then plus maybe even try your own stuff, try your own techniques, whatever you want to do. Just keep persisting, keep going, and you will get better. So that concludes today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've made it this far into the video, go into the comment section and comment the emoji on the screen right now, and I will heart your comment and possibly even pin one of your comments and subscribe to you. So, if you found these tips helpful, please consider subscribing for more tips and trick videos like this one, and consider sharing this video with a friend who may also find tips like this useful. Anyway, with all that being said, again, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace out.